Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday night, 9:30, August 5th, 2015, and you are tuned in live to the Mock and Roll Show on YouTube, which will then get turned into a podcast that you can find on iTunes. Subscribe to it every Friday morning. Alongside me are my two co-hosts, Damien and...
Hey.
Guys.
How you doing tonight, buddy? How's it going? How you feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling ready to stir some sauce. Feeling ready to talk some fantasy football, as always. And feeling ready to exchange a lot of bad puns and bad jokes with you guys.
You are good at that, so we're excited.
The story of your life, man.
That is the story of my life. It's an unfortunate life.
Bad puns and worse jokes.
That's right.
Write a book with that title.
I think I have to change my my handle down at the bottom there to that. Has bad jokes. All right. Anyway, well, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show tonight. You can stay in touch with the show via Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at Mock and Roll Show. You can also tweet your fantasy football questions live into the show, and we'd be happy to talk about them and discuss them using the hashtag Mock and Roll Show. But hey, before we get into stirring the sauce, before we really kind of get into the heart of the show tonight, we at the Mock and Roll Show have our first major event announcement that we're very excited to bring you. So here it is, loyal listeners. On Wednesday, in 3 weeks, Wednesday, I guess, yeah, it'll be 3 weeks, right? 2 weeks from today, 3 weeks from last week. Guys, my math, we're terrible at this right now. But anyway.
Math is not a strong point.
No, not for any of us. 2 weeks from tonight, we are going to be doing the first annual Mock and Roll Show Pros vs. Joe's mock draft. We're gonna have a panel of fantasy football experts, which doesn't include us. We're just gonna be there on the show, but we're not the experts.
We're the Joes.
Yeah, we're the Joe Spurts, which sounds disgusting.
Especially you, Sean.
Okay, but so how it's gonna work is I'm gonna bring a friend onto the show as one of the Joes. Each of my co-hosts will, and it's an opportunity for you, our listeners, to become a part of that. So, if you want to be considered for the Pros vs. Joe's live mock draft on the Mock and Roll Show on Wednesday night, August 19th. All you have to do is send us your info and why you should be a part of our mock draft, and you can reach out to us on Twitter at Mock and Roll Show, or you can send us an email to mockandrollshow@gmail.com, and we will pick a lucky guest, a lucky listener and follower, or unlucky depending on how you look at it, and we'll have you as part of our mock draft. One of the people that I'm very happy to announce that's going to be a part of this very special event is Anthony Grace. Anthony Grace comes to us from ESPN Radio of the Lehigh Valley. He's also a writer for ffchamps.com. He co-hosts a radio show there as well, and he hosts a radio show every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. on Patriots.com, which of course is the official website of the New England Patriots. So Anthony Grace, we're very excited to have him on the show from ESPN Radio, and it should be a great time for everybody. I know you guys are looking forward to doing that mock draft as much as I'm, and we still have 2 more panelists that we will be announcing in the near future. So so stay tuned for that. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Just excited for it. Really, really pumped to see what happens and how that draft shakes out.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is it's a nice thing because we talk about our draft strategies and who we like, and this mock draft, you're going to see how we're going to put that into play and how that kind of shakes out and how we prepare and draft in a live situation, which should help people, especially because that time. A lot of people's real fantasy draft should be coming around the corner.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So anyway, again, that's going to be Wednesday night, August 19th, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from tonight, live on the Mock and Roll Show. And stay tuned for more details there. But anyway, tonight, let's dive in and do what we always do, which is we like to stir the sauce. This week, it's going to be a little bit different, as normally when we do the sauce rankings here on the Mock and Roll Show, we take a look at several players, usually 3 players that are near each other as far as ADP goes, and so what we do is we go through and we rank and evaluate their situation, their ability, their upside, and their safety, and we discuss who has who's in the best situation, who has the most ability, who's second highest in upside. And then so what we do is we take them, we put them together, and we rank them. We come up with our sauce rankings, and hopefully that helps you, our listeners, and it helps us actually, kind of get a better handle on these players and maybe where you should be taking them or things maybe you didn't know. So we have what Damien likes to call a rankings summit here. This week it's going to be different. The 3 players that we're going to be talking about for the sauce discussion are not 3 players that are right near each other as far as ADP goes, but it's a conversation that has to be had because it's a valuable position. And of course, we're talking about tight ends. We're going to talk a little bit about the top 3 tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, and depending on what you're looking at as far as your ADP list goes, we're going to take Travis Kelce and put him into this discussion. Where we're not going to go through and really rank them as much because, again, their ADPs aren't close, we are going to talk about their situations pretty in depth. We'll talk a little bit about upside and some safety concerns, but their ability, we all know that these guys are all incredibly talented players, and from an ability standpoint, Gronk is a little bit above, or I should say, I guess you would say head and shoulders above the other 2, but they're all incredibly talented players and have a ton of ability. I don't think there's any disagreement from you guys on that. Right?
No.
So let's talk about situation, guys, and I'm just going to sort of hammer all this out for you. Rob Gronkowski of the New England Patriots. For his situation, Tom Brady leads this team, even if he misses the first 4 games due to a suspension. He'll be joined this season by LeGarrette Blount and Jonas Gray in the backfield, and the returning wide receiver group of Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, and Brandon LaFell, which is arguably the most talented group of number 2s to be assembled in one place since the Sidekicks Anonymous meeting featured Robin, Harley Quinn, Jimmy Olsen, and Bucky Barnes. Key additions to the Deflatriots start with their continued efforts to beef up that O-line. Last year, it was by drafting center Brian Stork and guard John Halapio, and this season, they're attempting to solidify that interior group with an eye towards the future by adding rookie starting guard Trey Jackson from, go ahead, John.
Florida State.
There you go, from Florida State University.
I was thinking about Brian Stork. I love Brian Stork, man. He's a Seminole too.
Was he?
Yeah.
Did they? So they both bought for Winston.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. But anyway, talking about additions for the Patriots, they also signed veteran quarterback Matt Flynn to inevitably back up second-year quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, who seems to have won the role of not Tom Brady for the first few weeks, assuming the suspension holds up. They also re-signed backup tight end Tim Wright and added Bills' starting tight end Scott Chandler to their team. Key losses, of course. Stevan Ridley, also known as the guy who Tiki Barber sent a fruit basket to for helping to replace him as the guy most frequently associated with fumbling issues. And just in case you're listening, no, Mark Sanchez, this does not get you off the hook. By the way, Stevan Ridley signed with the Jets. And lastly, the versatile and talented Shane Vereen, who was mostly a third down back, and while not very exciting or explosive, was a very reliable runner who rarely turned over the ball for the Patriots. He, of course, took his talents to the New York Football Giants. Right, Johnny? All right. Anything you want to say about your excitement about Shane Vereen?
For our radio listeners, that was a thumb.
Yes. Yeah. We hope you guys heard that thumbs up. It was a very intense thumbs up. He really kind of brought it up towards the mic.
It was more of a sneaky thumbs up. No,
oh.
You didn't hear it.
Our listeners are underestimating the sneakiness. Anyway, moving on. By the way, anything that you guys know that I missed there with situation with Rob Gronkowski that might prove beneficial to our listeners? Or did that cover everything?
Pretty thorough.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Jimmy Graham. There's not a ton to report with Jimmy Graham, as you've still got the powerhouse lineup with the Seahawks of Russell Wilson, fresh off signing his new contract. You have perennial fantasy stud RB1 Marshawn Lynch, who's only here this season, so he doesn't get fined. Followed by the wide receiver trio of Jermaine Kearse, Doug Baldwin, and Super Bowl star Chris Matthews, whose names are so unsexy that no matter where they appear on your ADP list, you will probably still ask yourself if they're starters in the NFL just to be safe. Key additions to the Seahawks. We're talking about him. Jimmy Graham. This guy needs no introduction, but in case you've been living under a rock, we'll just present him to you as the guy for whom the NFL has instituted a no dunking over the goalpost policy for. Anything else here? We got key losses. Huge centerpiece that led the rushing attack up front was center Max Unger, but in order to acquire Graham, they had to let him go, and away Max Unger went. They also lost starting guard James Carpenter, who they could have kept, but instead they let him sign with the Jets and appear ready to move on with Alvin Bailey, who will be starting in his role. Anything Seahawks related, guys, that you want to toss in there from a situation standpoint?
Pretty much it.
Okay, and Travis Kelce has really the least amount of news here to add. Not a whole lot to report for the Chiefs offensively. Alex Smith and, again, fantasy stud running back Jamal Charles lead this team into the 2015 season. Key gains, former Eagles wide receivers Jeremy Maclin and Jason Avant, who, of course, have previous experience under the Andy Reid system, should come along nicely. And they also picked up third-round draft pick out of Georgia, Chris Conley, at wide receiver. So the idea there is to help to bolster the passing game that Andy Reid likes to run. Anyway, they also got a big upgrade at right tackle with Paul Fineka. They drafted their assumed new starting center Mitch Morse out of Mizzou, and in what could arguably be their biggest free agent pickup, they acquired Ben Grubbs. Excuse me, not a free agent pickup, but they acquired Ben Grubbs from the Saints for a fifth-round pick. They desperately needed help on their offensive line after last season's struggles, and they definitely got it. Grubbs only allowed 1 sack last year. 2 to 3 sacks are his average allowed per year, and the guy's a 2-time Pro Bowler, so they definitely got some help where they needed it there. And finally, key losses to the Kansas City Chiefs from a situational standpoint. Wide receiver Dwayne Bowe was traded to the Browns and replaced by the previously mentioned Maclin. So again, not a ton of news there, but just efforts to bolster the offensive line and some new names at wide receiver for the Chiefs. Anything you guys want to add there as far as situation goes for Travis Kelce?
I think you got it. Those are those guys' situations.
Okay, so now again, we all agree that ability isn't really a discussion that we need to have here for the sauce this week. It's a bit of a special circumstance, and we're not doing the traditional rankings because they're not near each other in ADP. But let's talk a little bit about upside. Obviously, all of these guys are incredibly talented. I think it's worth mentioning from an upside standpoint that Johnny, I'm going to push this one out to you. So when you talk about Rob Gronkowski, the guy has 2 stats that I want to throw out actually to both of you guys. And this actually I'm going to call this the stat of the day for this week. Both of you guys, tight end A has 76 catches, 1,078 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 14.2 yards per catch. Okay. Tight end B has 78 catches, 896 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 11.4 yards per catch. So clearly lower numbers in yards, touchdown, half the touchdowns, and 3 yards less per catch. If you're not really aware of who those tight ends are, the first one is Rob Gronkowski's average per season. That's what he averages per season. And the guy just turned 26. The second set of numbers, Tony Gonzalez, who is widely considered the best tight end in NFL history, at a prorated 16-game average. By the way, the first set of numbers were Rob Gronkowski's season averages prorated to account for missed time due to injury. There's a reason I bring those numbers up. We know what Rob Gronkowski is capable of. We know that he is. You could put his numbers up there against any wide receiver's numbers, arguably. Okay, when you're talking about touchdowns, especially. My question, John, is how much do you think his numbers suffer this season if Tom Brady misses the first 4 weeks? Because I don't believe that Garoppolo is going to give him 2 to 3 touchdowns a game. Do you know what I'm saying? That 2 touchdowns a game in the first 4 weeks. And they might have to rely a little bit more on Blunt. How do you feel that? Where do you think his upside stands from that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think he's going to suffer all that much. Listen, especially if you're going to have a new quarterback in there who's not used to the reps or maybe not as familiar, obviously not as familiar with the playbook as Tom Brady is. He's going to look for that safety valve, that security blanket, which is really the tight end is the quarterback's best friend. And I think when things get hairy, and they're going to get hairy, he's going to get the ball to Gronkowski. He is the #1 playmaker on that offense.
Okay.
And listen, and especially because I think, especially if they're down in these games, they're going to look to get Gronk the ball. And if what's going to happen is if they try putting a free safety on him or they try rolling a corner over to him, you're going to leave guys wide open on the outside. And I don't think a lot of defenses are going to do that. I think they're going to kind of stick to the plan where they're going to, maybe put a strong safety on him, maybe get one of the faster outside linebackers to kind of get him off his route. But Gronk is such a freak of nature. I don't care how many guys you put on him, he's going to get his catches. I don't think it's really going to affect him all that much.
I think those are all very valid points. Now, along excuse me, along the same kind of concerns from a numbers standpoint, Damien, I'm going to pitch you a different question, okay? If you don't have anything to add to the Gronk question, when we talk about upside, and you talk about a guy like Jimmy Graham, who again, in Drew Brees' offense, always flourished, always put up monster numbers, and was the best, receiver I think you could argue on that team from a production standpoint, even at the tight end position. Now, he comes over to the Seattle Seahawks, who don't have the same type of air attack or much more of a power run and a run-first offense. I'm of the opinion that Jimmy Graham's targets will be down, his yardage and receptions will be down, but I think he still poses a threat to put up 13, 14 touchdowns because he's that red zone target that Russell Wilson has never had in his career, as quarterback of the Seahawks. I think with Marshawn Lynch and how he will drive the ball downfield for them, now they can run a solid play action. I just want to know, where do you think Jimmy Graham's upside lies, from a numbers standpoint?
Yeah, I want to separate two things for me for Jimmy Graham. When we talk about Jimmy Graham, I think his upside is probably to be the #1 overall tight end and supplant Graham. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying I think it's a possibility. Now, with that having been said, I do not like Jimmy Graham's upside this year for a few reasons. The first is this. Jimmy Graham is moving from the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees. Russell Wilson's a good quarterback. I'm not going to throw any shade his way. But the dude is not Drew Brees. Drew Brees, everybody talked about how he had a down year last year. Statistically, maybe a little bit. But his metrics, his analytics last year were tremendous again. Russell Wilson is not Drew Brees. Also, that offense is not the New Orleans offense. There's no way that he's going to get nearly as many targets. He will not get as many catches. When you talk about red zone catches and touchdowns, yeah, he'll get his touchdowns. But to me, there's a guy who I follow. I like his opinions a lot, Denny Carter, who has he writes for XN Sports. He talks about trust the process, not the product. And the process is pick the guy who gets the more targets, pick the guy who has the better chance to catch the more balls. Jimmy Graham is not going to have a year like he had with New Orleans Saints this year. He's still going to be good, don't get me wrong, but his upside to me is capped very much by the fact that he's not going to get nearly as many targets as he got with the Saints.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this next one, and then I'd like both your opinions on this last upside question I have. John, I'm going to start with you, of course, here. John, you talk about, Damien right there talks about, the guy who's going to get the most targets, the guy who's going to get the most opportunities. Losing Dwayne Bowe, would have proven to be, a good thing for Travis Kelce to see his numbers go up on the rise since he was the primary target. But when you bring in two guys, notably Jeremy Maclin, who is has the ability to be a game breaker, with his speed and his ability if he can stay healthy. And then bring in, a guy who's a little bit more of a safe, a safe player, but again knows the Andy Reid offense, like Jason Avant. My question to you is, do you think those additions to that offense and to the passing game, along with more strength on the offensive line from pass protection standpoint, do you think that those additions will help or hamper Travis Kelce's opportunities?
I think once you start putting better players around the offense, I think it makes everyone a little bit better. Listen, when you're talking about Dwayne Bowe hasn't really been there in the last 3 years. Jason Avant is an upgrade, I think, to Dwayne Bowe. And especially if you add Jeremy Maclin in there, listen, that's going to open up the outside. And Travis Kelce, who is a great athletic. And people, because KC is not a big market team. They're not as big as New England Patriots or really the Seahawks as of late. So maybe people don't know him as well as maybe they should. But he's a great athletic tight end. He makes some great catches. He has great hands. I think with those two new guys in that system, especially with Jamal Charles being there as well, he's healthy. I think he's going to bring up a lot of opportunity for Travis Kelce, and I think he's going to have a career year this year.
Damian?
Absolutely. Actually, the funny thing is, to me, when you look at Graham and Kelce, those two dudes, in my opinion, are completely interchangeable because I think they'll both get about the same number of targets. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Kelce got more targets than Graham gets. I think they're going to get the same number of targets. I think they're going to get the same really chance at red zone looks. You can make the argument that Wilson's a better quarterback than Smith, but I think Kelce's upside, and I'm not the only person who said this, I think his upside is at least equal to Graham's, if not maybe slightly higher, and you can get him 2 rounds later. So I think his upside is huge.
I agree with everything both of you guys were saying. When the new talent will help. Spread that offense, spread that defense a little bit more. More guys to cover. Less double coverage on one guy the entire game, like you see on some teams. So no, I agree. And lastly, of course, typically with the Sox we talk about safety. I think all 3 of these guys are incredibly safe plays. They all 3 of these tight ends are the go-to guy when it comes to passing on their offenses. All 3 of them, in different ways, have very talented quarterbacks. Even Alex Smith, who you might say is the least talented of this group, is an accurate guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, and he knows where his bread's buttered, and he knows to feed the tight end. He did that for years in San Francisco with Vernon Davis. So, anything you guys want to throw out there from a safety standpoint that you're concerned about?
I want to throw one thing in real quick. We got a tweet over here. I'm looking at the account. Our buddy James Rucker over at Draft Leads asked a question here about Charles Clay, tight end for the Buffalo Bills. Just throwing it in here, little curveball for you gentlemen. I know you can handle it. He moved over to the Buffalo Bills this year, moved over from the Miami Dolphins. He just asked, what do we think of Clay this year? I'll take the first crack at that here. So Charles Clay over at the Buffalo Bills, obviously he's going to be a late round guy. He's talented as heck. Everybody overlooked him. In fact, I think Bill Belichick last year said for the, who's a guy you're worried about on the Dolphins when you play them? And he said Clay is a guy that we have to check every single down. I think Charles Clay is a guy, I don't think he's going to do anything spectacular. He's got a couple targets out there. You got Sammy Watkins, you got Percy Harvin. I think Charles Clay will be just fine as a replacement value waiver wire tight end who you can pick up if it seems like he's going to get a lot of targets. Not somebody I'm targeting, but somebody in DFS that you might target, somebody that you might just keep your eye on for the waiver wire. And that's my read on Clay. Anybody have a different read on that dude?
No, and what I was going to say is, say you don't get the top 3 guys we're talking about, and say you don't get I think the next guy on the list would probably be a Greg Olsen, maybe. Say you don't get those guys there, and you have to go with for a Larry Donnell or someone of that caliber in that range. It's not a bad idea because right now Clay's going right around the 14th round. It wouldn't be bad if you have all your positions filled. If you have all your starting lineup filled out, you probably minus kicker and defense. But I think there's nothing wrong with going with Clay, and I actually like Clay a lot better than where his preseason ADP is. I like him really right around maybe the 6th or 7th best tight end.
Wow.
I think listen, he did some great things down and again, that's in Miami. I think if you go put him in now Buffalo with Sammy Watkins, second-year guy, you have, LaShawn McCoy there now. I think they can open some things up for him. I think he should do well there. I think overall, it's a better. I don't want to say better offense, but I think that's a team that's kind of moving in the right direction. And I think Charles Clay is a great a great addition to that team. And I think, and I stand by that. I think he's probably the seventh best tight end that you can get in fantasy wise.
So, John, you make some interesting points, and so does Damien. I have a little bit of a different approach to this. I definitely wouldn't put him. I wouldn't put him that high up on my list, John. But I would say this. I agree that he's an incredibly talented guy. He had 84 targets last year. I think he had somewhere in the upper 50s in catches, and I know he had over 600 yards receiving. Here's my thing. He may have moved in some ways to a better offensive situation than what he was in last year, but he downgraded at quarterback. But I think that could be to his benefit. So I see him, Charles Clay, as a good late-round pickup, a guy that you can hang on to in case the chips fall his way, and you might have a great sleeper pickup there. And here's why. Damien, John, what do we always talk about, right? What do uncomfortable and still learning young quarterbacks love more than anything? They love a pacifier tight end. What?
The security blanket.
That's it. So right now, while the quarterback job is sort of up in the air in Buffalo, and I know all signs seem to lean towards E.J. Manuel, okay, when you have coverage that's going to be going all over Sammy Watkins, you know what I mean, and you don't really know what's going to go on, on the outside as far as the health goes and the coverage there with the second wideout, plus you got to keep the defense honest with a guy like LaShawn McCoy. That offensive line, when it starts to break down, where the play's breaking down, you dump it off to your tight end. And John, I'm going to say this. While I don't know that I believe he will go, I don't think I would take him that high on the board as a tight end. I do think if all of that coverage rolls to Sammy Watkins, he could have numbers very similar to Sammy Watkins from a targets perspective, and potentially could have more touchdowns if they move the ball into the red zone than Sammy Watkins. It's possible, boys.
Right. Yeah, I was actually just looking at my notes, and seventh best is a little bullish of me. I'd probably roll him down a little. I was actually just looking through. I was like, man, I forgot about the Colts boys, and I forgot about Cameron and Julius. So maybe not seventh best, but what I was thinking about, I guess what I was trying to get at is if you have to double him up with another maybe not great tight end, that's not a bad option.
Right, and what you meant to say that was a little billish of you.
Yeah, very billish.
Yeah, Johnny, I was gonna let you live on that island by yourself and just.
Yeah, and I would have died on that island too.
You would have died on that island, yeah.
So again, thank you very much for the tweet. We appreciate it. Keep your questions and the things you want to know about fantasy. Send your thoughts in here. I know mock drafts, by the way, are already starting for some people. If you want us to review your draft, feel free to send us your lineup. You can email it to mockandrollshow@gmail.com. We'll be happy to kind of talk about some of your picks live and of course put it to the panel. But hey, your boy, was it James?
Yep.
Yeah, James actually brings up a really good question there, and it actually takes us in to the next part of tonight's discussion, which is, Damien, once you see the first 3 and 4, the top tight ends start to go off the board, then you find yourself in sort of a really tough spot because in most cases you're not taking a tight end. Really early now once you get past those first 3. In some cases, not even when you get past those first 2. You're going to see guys fall down into later rounds. So what I want to know is, Damien, is, from your perspective, when you get down now and you're talking about, a Martellus Bennett, a Julius Thomas, who I think is going to be, bought solely on his name and last year's numbers. Which I think could be a mistake. Even guys like Zach Ertz, who, by the way, if you guys haven't been paying attention to this, Zach Ertz, he's been taking most of his reps with the second-team offense. I don't know if you saw that, but so that could be interesting. But my point is when you look at those guys, and their ADP, they're going to be in the same area as some second-tier running backs. You could be taking a flex like a Trey Mason. If he hadn't just gotten hurt, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, but Alfred Blue, Amir Abdullah, Bishop Sankey, who I think is a sleeper. And then, of course, you have wideouts that fall into the same category. Guys like Nelson Aguilar, Eric Decker, Jarvis Landry, who caught a 60-yard pass. Where do you take your strategy, and where do you decide, you know what, I'm going to stop taking other skill positions for flex and depth, and I'm going to take a tight end? Or do you say, no, I got to get that tight end?
Let me take this train, right? This train that's chugging along. Let me pause it right there where we're talking about those later tight ends, and let me back it up a step. So we're talking tonight about Gronkowski, we're talking about Graham, and we're talking about Kelsey. I want to turn the question out to you, gentlemen. And this is the big question, boys. To me, this is the most interesting question. I'm so excited tonight to talk about this particular question. And I have a really passionate take about this. In fact, I just did a piece for our buddy James Rucker at Draftleets. I wrote a piece about this. I'm going to hold my take because I have a really fiery one on it. But I want to see where you guys stand. And this is it. This is for when you talk about tight ends, this is the nuclear question, gentlemen. Do you take Rob Gronkowski in the first or second round? His ADP right now on ESPN leagues is at 16, which puts him toward the beginning of the second round. I think his ADP on myfantasycalculator.com is 19, but he's going to mid-second round ish. Let me start with Johnny. Johnny, do you take Rob Gronkowski in the first or second round this year?
It depends. It depends on what you have. If you're talking about me, specifically, especially in our league, because we have keepers, depending on who you're using as keeper, I would not, just because I think there's way too much other value there to be had, and once you're getting into the later rounds, that value kind of disappears a little bit, especially at running back. So for someone like me, I would take, I'd probably start looking at tight end because I won't own Gronk because I'm not going to draft him that early. I really won't start looking at tight ends really until probably the 5th or 6th round to even kind of look at them, because I think there's just way too much other talent to be had there, and I don't want to jeopardize my team for one player. I would rather trade an A and get 2 Bs out of it. So no, I would not draft Gronk that early.
Yeah, I'm going to go with John here. Tight ends in fantasy football, the top 2 or 3, are a valuable commodity. But it was just a couple of years ago, and the stat, I remember sharing this with John, was, after you take the first, I think it's like 2 or 3 tight ends in fantasy football, I think it was 2 years ago, that the next 9 tight ends at the end of that season were all separated by a total of 5 fantasy points. That's an incredibly insane statistic. You know what I mean? 7 tight ends there. So my thing is, I'm not going to take a tight end really ever in the early rounds, and I don't care how good you are and what your numbers are. When it comes to tight ends in general, I draft like the New York Giants do. I'm going to take before I know
where you're going.
Yeah. He was ready to defend his guys. But relax.
Wait a second.
Relax, Billish. No. Here's my thing. I actually take the stance when it comes to considering my tight end, and this is every round. When I'm looking at a tight end, I say, is the tight end the best player on the board? If he's the best player on the board, okay, better than a running back that I could take for depth or for a starter, better than a wide receiver, then I have to consider it, and then I have to try and say, well, then, I'm going to pull that trigger. But in most cases, there's always a running back or a wide receiver that is either that I can either plug in at flex, plug in at a wide receiver or running back 2 spot, or a guy that I'm going to use more frequently subbing in and out based on matchups than I will with a tight end. For me, tight ends, with the exception of Gronkowski, and honestly, I'll say with the exception only of Rob Gronkowski, because of the additions to the Chiefs and because of Jimmy Graham's new home. For me, tight ends are too much of a boomer bust, and I just can't take that chance.
I want to add just one more thing before Dame, for you guys. I want to add one more thing about Gronk and Grant. Another thing that kind of weighs on my mind a little bit is, one, Gronkowski's injury history. He gets hurt quite a bit, and for me to take him in those early rounds when I'm giving up, say an Alshon Jeffrey, or I know not our league, but say either a C.J. Anderson or a Jeremy Hill. I kind of weigh the options, and yes, Gronkowski is a better player, and if you get Gronkowski, you will have a tight end advantage every single week, minus the bye week. But I don't know that I'm willing to take that risk on a Gronkowski, because, listen, if he gets hurt, you're going to have a big hole there, and I don't care who you're filling that in with, because if you draft Gronkowski first, you're not even thinking about tight end, until, the late round, until you're looking at a Charles Clay later down the road. And the second thing is, same thing goes with Graham. Graham doesn't get hurt as bad as Gronk, but I think Graham is soft. I think he sits out for smaller reasons, and he misses games and games and games, and he's just not there. So yeah, I think injury kind of has to weigh in there too for me.
Okay, and now here's the thing. I just want to counter what you said with one thing. I agree that you do have to be concerned about him from an injury standpoint, but for me, the injuries he's had, I'm not concerned about. The next injury he has, I will really throw up red flags. And here's why I say this: for as much time as he has missed game-wise, okay, for as many times as he's been hurt, there's one stat that he has in the young career that he has that makes me feel safe if I were to take him, that I'm still going to get production. Because even when he's missed a lot of games, the guy's the only tight end in NFL history to have 4 double-digit tight end or touchdown seasons. And he's only 26. Durability is a concern for me. But while he's on the field, you're going to get something. I agree. He's got to stay there.
No, I am actually concerned with his injuries, because he broke his forearm 2 times, and it's not just not a freak accident. That's the way he falls. He falls, and not only does he get hurt the same way, it takes him a long time to get back on the field.
Hey, boys, I want to put this whole Gronk discussion to bed here now, because you both reached the right answer, but maybe not for the reasons that I'm going to give. You do not, and this is for our listeners, right? You do not take Rob Gronkowski in anything earlier than the 3rd round this year. I'm going to tell you exactly why. There's a guy named J.J. Zacharyson who has a book called The Late Round Quarterback. He writes. He's the founder of NumberFire.com, and he talks about running back bust rate. Okay, he's done statistics. Running backs 1 through 12 bust at a very high percentage. However, they bust at just under 50% from being running back 1s. So, and once you get past those guys, it just falls off a cliff. So if you're taking Rob Gronkowski in round 1 or 2, your chance of getting a running back 1 in round 3 or later is exponentially smaller. It's opportunity cost, boys. And here's the other reason you cannot take Rob Gronkowski before round 3. It's because of this. You guys ever hear of a parlay?
Yep.
It's a type of bet. A parlay is a type of bet in which you're betting 2 things to occur at once. So you bet that the Mets beat the Yankees, and you also bet that the Rangers beat, the Avalanche in hockey. It makes it twice as hard for you to win the bet. If you take Rob Gronkowski in rounds 1 or 2, you're not just betting on Rob Gronkowski. It's a parlay, gentlemen. You're betting on 2 things. You're betting A, that Rob Gronkowski is still dominant, and you're betting B, that nobody else who's drafted in later rounds, Kelsey, Graham, Charles Clay, or anybody else, climbs up and ascends to the level of Rob Gronkowski. Because if they do, because it's a one-off position, it's only 1 deep, you have just essentially wasted your pick. And let me explain to you why. Because if you take Gronkowski in round 1, you missed the chance to get a running back or a wide receiver in round 1. And if somebody else takes, say, Jordan Cameron in round 8, and Cameron is only within 1 point of Gronkowski that year, that guy is going to crush you because he took a running back or wide receiver in round 1. His team's going to be so much better. It's just not a safe or smart play. I am not even looking at Gronk until the middle of round 3 this year.
Yeah, and this is another discussion for another time, but I will say this. I feel the same way about quarterbacks early that I feel about tight ends, but we could talk about that another time. So just to sort of wrap this up a little bit, I just want to get some quick points from you guys. So Damien, coming back to the original question here is I understand and our listeners understand now where we all stand about drafting a guy like Gronk early, but now for you, when you get, like I said, when you get to the 5th, 6th round, and of course it's situational. Are you looking at a guy, are you looking at a guy like Jason Witten, you know what I mean, whose ADP right now is right about 88, you know what I mean? Or are you looking to pick up, depth at wideout, maybe and take a guy like Martavius Bryant or Torrey Smith or Nelson Aguilar, you know what I mean? How do you feel about that?
So for me, again, I'm not taking Graham either for the same reason. His ADP right now is 28, which puts him into the 3rd round. If I'm not taking Gronk in the 3rd round, I'm sure as heck not taking Jimmy Graham in the 3rd round. And then Travis Kelce, I think, goes in like the 5th round. In the 5th round, I will look at tight ends, and if I see Kelce there, I'll consider him, right? In the 6th round, boy, I mean, I kind of don't even care. Johnny said it before, that there's a whole list of guys that you can take who will finish, probably between tight end 4 and tight end 15. I'm just going to take upside, and you know what? I'm going to take a tight end as late as I possibly can at that point. I'm going to take Darius Green, right, and play him for 4 games until Antonio Gates comes back, and then I'll take probably another guy, Jordan Cameron or Charles Clay or somebody like Tyler Eifert and just roll the dice,
Yep. One last thing, and then John, I'm gonna ask you the same question. I'm putting you guys on the spot here, but I need an answer and then a quick one or 2 sentence explanation as to why you feel this way. For our listeners out there who are gonna maybe follow the same sort of strategy that we follow, which is taking tight ends a little bit later on. Who's your late tight end of choice and why?
For me, it's if I take a late one, maybe like a sleeper, I really like Austin Seferian-Jenkins for Tampa Bay. I think that's a team who is doing really good things. You have 2 really good outside weapons with Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans. Plus, you have really a 3-headed monster at running back there. Again, you have maybe not great running backs, but you have enough guys there that I think will get the job done. And listen, you have really the most pro-ready quarterback in Jameis Winston. Again, he's a rookie, and I understand that, but he's one of the more pro-ready rookies coming through, and one of the smartest, not off-field, but between the lines. They compare him to an Andrew Luck when it comes to football smarts. So I think he'll make good decisions. I think Jenkins is going to benefit from that because at Florida State, Jameis Winston looked for his tight end an awful lot, and I expect the same to happen in the NFL ranks.
Damien.
I'm going to say, John, it actually hurts my heart a little bit to say this, Johnny, because I don't like to see your team succeed. And actually, I think on the defensive side of the ball, your team won't really succeed. But there is a non-zero chance that the Giants have an elite offense this year with Odell Beckham and Eli Manning, the 2nd year of Ben McAdoo as offensive coordinator. I love Larry Donnell this year as a late-round flyer. Yeah, I think he could absolutely get 8, 9, 10 touchdowns is a stretch there, but he could really catch some touchdown passes this year.
Well, listen to this. And again, this is not breaking news, but the Giants actually just signed James Jones because James Jones wanted to come back to McAdoo's offense. So now for wideouts there, you have Victor Cruz, Odell Beckham, Ruben Randall, and now James Jones with Larry Donnell, and obviously the newly acquired Shane Vereen. So that offense is looking promising. Promising.
Not to derail this train either, but anybody who's looking late round quarterback, if Eli Manning is in the board in the 8th, 9th, or 10th round, gentlemen, you are pulling the trigger on that. He might be
now or never.
Yeah, it won't happen in our league because he'll go in the 4th round. But
hey, I just wanted to respond to the tight end discussions here. John, my late or sleeper tight end of choice this season is Austin Seferian-Jenkins as well. So, since you covered all the points that I probably would have covered, or similar points, I'm going to take this the other direction. I'm going to tell you guys a tight end that you should stay away from. Okay, this is a guy that every year people say, "I'll tell you what, this is going to be the year this guy takes off." It's going to be, the guy's got big playability. He's a great young hand. Yada yada yada. And I'm hearing it again this year. I see people talking about it. He's going to be a great steal at tight end. Do not drink the Kyle Rudolph Kool-Aid. Okay?
We're still talking about him?
Listen, Kyle Rudolph had one season that he played all 16 games. And in that season, he put up respectable numbers, but the guy capped out at 9 touchdowns. He had 93 targets, and he got just under 500 yards. Okay? The last 2 seasons, everybody talked about when he had Christian Ponder and then Teddy Bridgewater. They said, he's going to be, a key point on that offense. He's a really talented weapon. And guess what? The guy couldn't stay healthy for more than about half the season. Okay? Between the last 2 seasons, he's played 17 games, 8 in one year, 9 in the other, and the guy couldn't eclipse 50 targets. He can't stay on the field, and as talented as the guy was in college, and as talented as he could have been in the NFL, he's just, for me, he's a bust at this, a complete bust. So do not take Kyle Rudolph. Do not drink the Kool-Aid, and hell, I wouldn't pick him up, as a bye-week slot fill at this point. But so that's it. So do you guys have anything to add to this late round tight end discussion? Because otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move on.
No, I'm good. I think we covered what needed to be covered. Well, I know on my end I covered what I wanted to at least get in.
Johnny got in what he wanted to get in, so we can move it along.
Move on then.
I will say real quick, Sean. I'll say I actually disagree with you on Kyle Rudolph, but you can move it on.
What the hell are you talking about?
I like Rudolph this year.
Well, here I'll throw some off. Let me throw some off to Damien real quick. Do you like Eifert better than Rudolph?
Yes.
Do you like Heath Miller better than Rudolph?
No.
Do you like scoring fantasy points?
No. How about Vernon Davis?
No. I don't believe in Davis. I really don't.
Okay. How about second-year guy Eric Ebron?
Nope.
Okay. Well, one guy, Tyler Eifert, is the 13th round pick. That right now is 2 full rounds later than you can get Kyle Rudolph.
Touche. Touche. I love Eifert this year, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John. You show him who's boss. All right, hey, let's move it along here. Speaking of fantasy football, which is all we really talk about here, fantasy sports fans are winning huge cash prizes every day at DraftKings.com. That's right. This is the promo part. America's favorite place to play daily fantasy sports. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Just pick your sport and draft your team. It's like a new season every time you play, so you're never stuck with the same players. Over $1 billion will be won at DraftKings.com this year, and you could be the next to win big. So right now, not after the show, you don't have to listen to us. Just go now to DraftKings.com. Sign up, enter the promo code MOCKROLL, and you're going to get free entry immediately. It's as simple as that. Go to DraftKings.com, promo code MOCKROLL, MOCKROLL, free entry. Go sign up now, win big, and help pay for our kids' college tuitions. Chip in for us. Anyway, let's move on, guys. Let's talk about some news.
I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. Actually, he's got a Facebook message. Actually, a guy from our league wants us to know, or kind of wants us to kind of gauge where we think Delaney Walker is compared.
And already go as early as the first round. Jesus, you never know.
Now, come on, let's give some good advice here, guys.
No, I'm just kidding. Damien, how do you feel about Delaney Walker?
Delaney Walker, yeah, you know what? I like Delaney Walker this year. And you know what, guys? I've said before, one of the things I love about the Mock and Roll show is that we're honest. And my position shifts and changes as the preseason goes on. And listening to you two dolts helps me inform my position too. I kind of am starting to like Marcus Mariota. I know that sounds weird. Yeah,
No
yeah.
interceptions
Round
in
of
the
applause.
last.
Thank you very much. I think I deserve a golf. Sean, will you give me a golf clap? Thank
Did you
you.
hear that stat today, Damien?
Yeah.
No interceptions in his first 5 days of
Well,
practice.
you know what, and that's not the well. I don't buy too heavily into training camp stuff, but you know what, he has to be better than Zach Mettenberger. I think Delaney Walker has a good chance. Listen, guys, I mean Delaney Walker, Charles Clay, Tyler Eifert, Zach Ertz, any of these guys could do it. You know, any of these guys could do it. So yeah, I like Delaney Walker just fine. I think he's a great late round pickup. You put him on your team, he could finish, you know, as tight end 12 or tight end 8 or heck, tight end 6. And, you know, I like him just fine.
Yeah, right now going in the middle of the ninth round. Other tight ends going there. Jason Witten's also in the ninth round. And right before him, you're looking at a Julius Thomas and a Jordan Cameron. So yeah, I think he's right around that 10 to 12 tight end ranking. And yeah, I like him just fine. Especially if I had him on my team, I wouldn't be upset with it.
I'm moving Delaney Walker up my board, boys. I am hoping and praying that Marcus Mariota locks in that starting job. I'll say it again. Security blanket, people. Security blanket. Delaney Walker is an incredibly talented tight end. He did good things. He just happened to be behind Vernon Davis when he was in San Francisco. And going to there and getting the contract he did in Tennessee, they saw that he has great pass catching and run after the catch ability. For me, I like Delaney Walker personally over Zach Ertz. I like him over Julius Thomas. I think people are going to make the mistake and buy Julius Thomas. Listen, the best thing to happen to Julius Thomas was Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Peyton Manning. All of those eyes were taking the focus off Julius Thomas, and Peyton Manning was smart enough to capitalize it and throw it to the guy who wasn't drawing all of the coverage. You know what I mean? Julius Thomas, Blake Bortles is not Julius Thomas. Where Blake Bortles, I think, will use him as a security blanket as well. I think you're going to see the defenses cover Julius Thomas because of what happened last year, and those balls are going to Allen Robinson. And that's why I think Allen Robinson's going to have a huge year in Jacksonville. So I'm buying Delaney Walker. I like him probably at about the right around the Jason Witten area. I would take Martellus Bennett first, and then I like Delaney Walker or Jason Witten, maybe even a Jordan Cameron. That's a shuffle right there for me.
The only thing I'll say about Delaney Walker is just keep your eyes open in training camp. They did pick up over in Tennessee Anthony Fasano, who came over from the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And I know he's more of a blocker than he is a receiver, but hey, listen, that's the reason Zach Ertz is running with the second team right now is because Brent Selleck is a heck of a blocker. So just keep your eyes open. I'm not saying it's going to take away necessarily from Walker's value, but it's something to monitor as training camp rolls along.
Yep. Nope. I can't disagree with you.
Awesome.
All right. So, anyways, that's it. So, thanks for the question. Again, send your listener questions in every week. You can tweet at us at Mock and Roll Show. You can use the hashtag Mock and Roll Show, or you can send us your emails to mockandrollshow@gmail.com. All right, boys, let's move on quickly to a little bit of news and notes in fantasy football. The first of which can only really be described as karma is, well, you know how that goes. But a guy who just split from his lady friend tore his groin completely off the bone. Completely off the bone. And unfortunately, for those of you who have the 6th, 7th, or 8th pick in the draft and you were thinking about this guy, Arian Foster just came off your board. And that is a huge hit to the RB1 spot because there aren't too many quality RB1s that aren't really competing with anybody for their job. Damien, I just want to mention this, and I know this is a guy that Johnny over there loves. I'm pointing at you, buddy. But there have been rumors now with Foster being hurt, Alfred Blue being hurt, that the Texans might be looking to make a move and trade for Christian Michael from the Seattle Seahawks. Damien, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me pause that right there because I will say I don't even want to really go here. I don't even want to mention this. I drafted Christian Michael at a really embarrassingly high round last year. I made a lot of mistakes. Let's just move on from that. I did not hear that. The funny thing that you mentioned this is, as soon as I saw that Arian Foster went down, I tweeted at, who was it? I think it was Sigmund Bloom at Football Guys, and I said, "Hey, is Christian Michael going to come there?" Christian Michael's a Texas A&M guy. He's a Texas guy.
Yeah.
He would fit perfectly there. I mean, it's total speculation. I freaking love Christian Michael. If he went there, that changes the game. Where did you hear that, Sean?
The internet. It must be true.
Are you just making this up? Well, seriously.
No. Okay. Actually, it was something from that John Clayton or Adam Schefter had posted. Just that there was discussions and rumblings that it could happen. It could.
Listen, I think Christian Michael is one of the best third running backs on any team. You name one better third running back on any team than Christian Michael.
Shane Vereen.
I think fantastic.
No, that's the wrong answer.
Hey, John, where did Christian Michael go to school?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Oh, that's right. Damien just said that. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Hey, listen, guys, I'm busy doing what everybody else should be doing, not listening. So there's that. So it's an unfortunate. And Damien, I know you were saying that there's speculation that this could not only be a tough injury for Foster, but it could be the end of his career.
Yeah, I mean let me back up from that a step. It ended Clinton Portis's career. He tore his groin off the bone. He's a 29-year-old running back, or 28-year-old running back, 29-year-old running back, with an injury history. It's a career-changing injury regardless. If he comes back, he will not be the same dude. He was actually contemplating retirement before last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Arian Foster hung up his cleats.
Okay. Moving on here, just another quick piece of news that came out today, which was that Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Michael Floyd. First, it was reported that he broke several fingers on his one hand. Then it was said that he dislocated several of those fingers. I know my feelings on how this affects my draft board, with regards to a guy like Michael Floyd. But Johnny, I want to throw it over to you before I give my insight on this, and then I'll give you my opinion, and I want to hear Damien's response to that. So, John, your thoughts on the Cardinal situation now with Michael Floyd possibly missing 6 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe more?
Yeah, maybe more, but I'm not upset about it because I really like John Brown for Arizona, and I think he has to move up a little bit on people's boards. He's a good talent there. Again, he was a rookie last year, kind of below the radar because of really the boom of rookie wide receivers last year. But he is a very talented wide receiver. I think he's just as talented as Michael Floyd. Or he could be, maybe even better at some point. But yeah, I'm excited for that because I really like to see him get kind of more in the mix and kind of see what he can do. But yeah, I really like John Brown moving up and hopefully possibly taking his spot for the time being.
I have to tell you, I wasn't even really thinking about John Brown. Obviously, I know, of his place on this team and his talent. I wasn't even thinking about Larry Fitzgerald here. You know what I was thinking, boys? I was thinking, I cannot wait to buy Michael Floyd low because everybody's going to drink that Kool-Aid and everybody's going to move John Brown up their board.
Yeah.
So I'm buying Michael Floyd. I'm buying him late. I think this is the best thing to happen to late picks this season so far. With the exception of if a Christian Michael does get traded, I am all about Michael Floyd. This injury is great for me for fantasy owners because now you're going to have people that are going to drink that Kool-Aid and say, oh man, he's hurt. That's the end of that, and they're going to get a steal at Michael Floyd 3 to 4 rounds later than they would have otherwise. Damien.
Yeah, I think John Brown is a great dynasty pick. I don't want him this year in redraft because he's the third wide receiver. I'm not interested in that this year. Sean, it's very rare that you say things that I really, really connect with, and this one I absolutely do. Michael Floyd, you know what? He'll be back, though. I think if he comes back in 5 weeks, he'll still be back for week 1. In our league with guys who are probably not going to pay that much attention, we'll just say, hey, Michael Floyd. They'll draft him anyway. They won't even be thinking about it. But in leagues with guys who are a little bit more expert-type leagues, I think it'll move his ADP down, and if his ADP moves down, I am a buyer. I think he's the best wide receiver on that team.
Excellent, excellent. All right, boys. Let's continue moving the show along, and let's start to wrap things up here tonight. Let's do a little bit of our favorite segment that we do every week. Let's do a little bit of Would Shock You, Wouldn't Shock You. Who wants to go first, guys? Who wants to hear? Who wants to take my read first? Damien, you want me to throw this at you first?
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you wanted me to go first, but yeah, go ahead.
Please go for it.
I'll throw. So I won't say I'm cheating here a little bit because this isn't cheating, but in our league, the one that we play with together, I have 2 keepers, and one of them is Mr. Jeremy Hill. So I'm going to center my Would It Shock You or Wouldn't It Shock You around Jeremy Hill this year. And here's my question.
Wait. You can't be a host on this show and use this show to get fantasy advice.
Yeah, sure I can. That's what I do anyway.
John, who hired this guy?
Seems legit.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. I'll toss this one to J3 first. Would it shock you or wouldn't it shock you if Jeremy Hill led the league in rushing touchdowns this year?
I guess it wouldn't shock me.
You know, I'm gonna have to edit out all that blank space.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm thinking about the guys. The guys. I'm gonna change it. It would shock me. It would shock me, and not taking anything away from Jeremy Hill because I think Jeremy Hill is a great running back. But when you're looking at guys like Adrian Peterson, Eddie Lacy, Le'Veon Bell, I think those guys have a better chance of scoring more touchdowns than Jeremy Hill does. So I'm going to say, yes, it would shock me.
Thank you, Johnny, for pleading my case for me. I'm out. I'm with him, though. Seriously. I think Jeremy Hill's an incredibly talented kid. I think he's got a great, potentially long career ahead of him. But for me, the opportunity to get down there by driving the ball, consistently plays a factor. And for me, I'm looking at guys like Eddie Lacy, who has Aaron Rodgers and the rest of that Green Bay Packer offense to move down the field. I'm looking at guys like Marshawn Lynch, again, a team that the Seattle Seahawks know how to move the ball downfield, and they're not afraid to give him the ball inside the 15 to try and punch it in. You know what I mean? So, of course you have Adrian Peterson coming back, it's not taking anything away from Jeremy Hill and his ability to perform. It's just that he still has to wait for the seniors to to get their pick at the meat first. You know what I mean? And I think that if he does it, it will shock me, but it will be very impressive. You know what I mean?
Let me say one thing, and I absolutely am anything but a homer for my own, picks and keepers and whatever. My other keeper is Carlos Hyde, and as evidenced by the fact that I've tried to trade him to pretty much everybody in our league, I'm not very high on him this year. What I will say though is everybody is totally underrating Cincinnati's offense this year. They have a top 5 offensive line. Absolute. Andrew Whitworth is probably the best left tackle in the game, not named. Who's the left tackle for Dallas? I can't think of the guy's name. I can't think of it. But their offensive line is incredible. Last year, everybody on that offense was banged up. This year, they have A.J. Green back. They finally have a healthy Tyler Eifert. They have Marvin Jones. They have Mohamed Sanu. That is going to be an offense that moves the ball. I would not be surprised, gentlemen, if that was a top 6 offense this year. He's going to be on the goal line.
But they still have an incredibly inconsistent red rifle.
Yeah, he throws picks, but he didn't have last year. Yeah, in the playoffs, I hear you. But
I'm not even talking about
football's not the playoffs.
Wait. Playoffs? You're talking about playoffs? Playoffs? They just want to win a damn game. Listen, I'm not talking about just the picks. I'm just talking about where the ball's going, how it's getting downfield, being consistent with your decision-making, and not buckling under pressure. Nobody is questioning the offensive line. Nobody's questioning the wide receiver talent there, and nobody's questioning Jeremy Hill. It's about the guy under center. Think about the teams that we were talking about from a running back perspective. Take out Adrian Peterson because Teddy Bridgewater is still not super proven yet. But when you're talking about some of the top running backs that we talked about, Eddie Lacy has Aaron Rodgers making decisions to help him move the ball downfield. You know what I mean? C.J. Anderson, who's, in the bottom half of the first round in a lot of fantasy drafts. He has Peyton Manning under center. You know what I mean? You're talking about Le'Veon Bell. Ben Roethlisberger's under center. I could go on and on. Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch. So for me, Jeremy Hill's ability to get into the red zone and score those touchdowns rests heavily on his quarterback's ability to put him in that position.
Sure.
That's where I stand there. My shock you, would shock you and wouldn't shock you. Johnny, I'll start with you here. Johnny, what do Larry Centers, Charlie Garner, Michael Pittman, and Matt Forte have in common? Do you know?
They're football players.
Good answer. Good answer. Davey, can you?
You're a smart man, Charlie Brown.
Give him a golf clap. Can you do that? Thank you very much. The correct answer, if you don't, Damien, do you know the answer?
They all have had Mark Trestman as offensive coordinator.
They have all been PPR monsters under Mark Trestman. Mark Trestman knows how to get the ball in the hands of his running backs through the air. So, Johnny, my question is, it would shock you or it wouldn't shock you to see Justin Forsett catch 70-plus passes this year as a Raven?
I feel as though we've had this question before, but no, this would not.
Damien, you set me up. You told me we never did this one.
We definitely did this one before, and my answer still doesn't change. It would not shock me. I think that is.
The show is going so well.
You know what, Sean? It's all coming back to me now. You know,
if you want my answer, go back to our third episode and you just rewind it.
You know what? Johnny, would it shock you or would it not shock you if Damien actually was beneficial on this show by the end of this season?
You know what? You know what's coming back to me now, Sean, and I'll say the same thing I said in that episode. Yeah, it would shock me if he didn't have at least 70.
I love and hate you both. All right, Johnny, what's your wouldn't shock you? Let's go.
Okay, guys. Okay. Saying that Alfred Blue starts season as the #1 running back for the Texans. Say that he's healthy, he's starting. Would it shock you or would it not shock you if he's a 1,500 10-touchdown guy this year?
Well, Damien, I'm going to take this one first. I have one word for you that athletes hate. Hamstring. The dude got hurt, and that's something that nags you, a lot. Players have a hard time. They come back a little bit sooner than they should, and they have and it comes back and it gets re-aggravated. For me, it would absolutely shock me. That team in general is not talented enough to produce a 1,500-yard back, and the only reason they did or have is because Arian Foster has been that good. He has carried that team, in a way that is reminiscent, obviously different from a talent and a yardage perspective, but it's like Adrian Peterson, but not not as talented. Arian Foster has been the best thing to happen to Arian Foster in Houston, and he has not really gotten much help, over the last few years. So for me, it would absolutely shock me. It's not that I don't think Alfred Blue is a good player, but he's not as good as Arian Foster is. I just don't see that happening. I'll tell you what, I'll say this one thing. If they acquired Christian Michael, I would not be shocked to see Christian Michael do it, because I think he has that kind of a ceiling where he could produce a lot of yards. 1,500 total yards.
Did you say 1,500 total yards or 1,500 yards rushing, Johnny?
I said rushing yards.
Yeah, so here's my stance on that. That is, not only would that shock me, I will go live with this, okay? If that happens, I'll shave my head. No, seriously, gentlemen, listen. There is no chance in the universe that Alfred Blue does it. I don't even care about his hamstring. If he was the healthiest he's ever been in his entire life on this planet, that's it. And even forget the fact that the Houston Texans are a terrible offense with a terrible quarterback and one wideout, no other weapons. Let's forget all of that. Alfred Blue is not a good running back. He averaged 3 yards a carry last year. According to Roto Underworld's player profiler, he had a negative 25 rating and efficiency. So by my math, and granted, I'm not going to.
Oh no! Oh
no! To get 1,500 yards, Alfred Blue would need 500 carries next year. So if he gets if he gets 500 carries, J3, yes, he can do it.
So he just needs to be DeMarco Murray this year.
Yeah. He's going to need 500 carries to get to 1,500 yards, buddy. It's not going to happen.
Oh, my God. Okay, I have to tell you something. Johnny, I love that question because I loved that answer. All right, well, listen, everybody, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. That's all the time we have this week on the Mock and Roll Show. I want to remind you guys again, our big announcement from tonight. In 2 weeks, August 19th, we're going to have the first annual Mock and Roll Show live mock draft. It's going to be our Pros versus Joes draft, and we're looking for you out there, in our listening audience. If you want a chance to be a part of the Pros versus Joes mock draft, which is going to be live on this show, we're all going to be on it. It's also going to feature Anthony from ESPN Radio, the Lehigh Valley, who also does a radio show on Patriots.com, home of the New England Patriots online. Send us your tweets with your information. Follow us, get in touch, direct message us your information and why you should be a part of this. Or better yet, go to your email, send an email to mockandrollshow@gmail.com. Tell us why you want to be the one listener that we choose to be a part of this Pros versus Joes draft. And again, 2 weeks, August 19th, right here live on YouTube on the Mock and Roll Show. Also, subscribe to our podcast. This show will be up alongside our other episodes on iTunes every Friday morning. So go over there, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay in touch with us. Share it if you love the show. Like it. Give us your comments, what you love and what you hate. And again, stay in touch. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @Mock and Roll Show, and stick with us on Instagram. Our boy J3 over there is kicking out a ton of hilarious memes. One that I posted up today that you guys should go check out, featuring not NFL player Kevin Durant, that was so funny and so entertaining that the Bud Light guy from the Bud Light commercials with his awesome beard, he loved that post. And so head over to Instagram @Mock and Roll Show. Stay in touch with us. For J3, for Damien, for myself, we'll see you guys next week live right here, 9:30 p.m. This has been the Mock and Roll Show. Thank you guys so much. And sign up at DraftKings. Use the promo code MockRoll. Get free entry now. See you next week, boys.